Okay, so again, how do we get here? Open your code space, and we are doing homework 1. So we go to src homework bin proc out. We open the output.py file, and the homework assignment is asking us to create a function named multiply numbers, accepts 2 parameters, num1, num2. Don't think it says return value, but it has to return a value. Otherwise, how do we test it, right? So multiply numbers. Again, very simple. It's like the add numbers, right? But main goal here is how do we code in this class? So we say this is num1, this is num2. And then we go back to the instructions. Multiply numbers will return the product of num1 and num2. Notice it doesn't tell you like how to do it. So it's up to you like how you want to implement that. Here I can say, okay, I will create a variable product, and I will say num1 times num2. Create local function or method a variable. And then I simply say return the product. That's it. That's all I have to do for this function. What step was this? This was the code step. So now I need to test my code. Okay, so I go to homework, bin proc out, test in proc out, and then I have some examples here, right? But I'm like, well, I need to create a new function, so I'll say def test multiply numbers. What was get number, by the way? No one asked, right? Like, so what's this? It's just an example, right? It's just an example. So hopefully students will be like, oh, okay, so return. And then you will go to the test case, and hopefully you would study this, and it'd be like, oh, so if I get number and I send in the value 1, that should return the value 1. If I use get number and I send value 2, that should give me value 2. That's why that was there. Again, self here is required. That's all we need to know for now. And then we create an assertion, assert equal that, look at our instructions. Numbers underscore 1. Okay, so I need to say underscore 1. And then it's telling us to use parameters 5 and 5. The result should be 25. 5 times 5 is 25, right? So we were like, okay, so 5 and 5. Oops, I need to call the function first, right? How do I call the function? What did I name it? I'll name it multiply numbers, and I use 5 and 5. That should give me 25. Okay, but here again, recall, it's like saying I do not know what multiply numbers is. So hopefully by now you're like, oh yeah, he told me to go to quick fix here, and then I should get some prompt here that says that it found multiply numbers in the in proc output file. So if I click here, then notice up here, it adds the function name for me, which makes it visible to this file for Python. Now Python understands what multiply numbers is. So I go here, clear. I cannot run my test case from the test file. I have to go to run test.py, right? So run test.py, go here. And right now I'm running tests from the test examples folder. I don't want to run them from there anymore. Instead I want to go to test.homework. .b in proc out. Let's see here. Let me go back here. Dot b in proc out. Okay, so from this folder, so it's kind of like I'm not sure how this works. So we go to test homework folder b in proc out. There's a file test in proc out. So I'm like, okay, so test in proc out, copy it and put it here. That's a test file we want the test suite to run for us, right? Oops. didn't. Control C. Okay, so now when I run this program, it'll run the test cases are in this file testin.proc.out.py. So I go back to run test.py here and run. And I'm interested in multiply numbers. So multiply numbers is here. It's okay. So it's working as expected. So I was able to create the multiply numbers function, new code. Now I tested the code. Okay, let me go back to, okay, it's asking me to create another assertion, right? So 10 and 10, 100. Okay, so I can go back to my test case here. And maybe I can just say, okay, Control C. And I'll just name this to number 2, and it's saying that if I use 10 and 10, then that should give me the value 100. So I should be able to go back to what? Run underscore test. This is fine. And notice now here, like multiply numbers 1 and multiply numbers 2 test cases, return successful value. So now my multiply numbers function, is tested, beginner code. We gave it 2 values. It's working as expected. Now we can use it in our main program, right? So code, test the code. If it's okay, then we can use it in main. Again, if it fails, let me make it fail on purpose. Assuming I was in a hurry and I don't know, maybe I did this by mistake, right? I was just in a hurry and I didn't notice that, and I'm like, okay, let me go to run test and run as like what, like 280. So then when your code fails, it'll tell you like what failed, right? Multiply numbers 1 failed. So go to your test file. First thing you want to do is look at the values you are using, right? And you know what your code should do, right? So in this case, you're like 5 times 50. What? 5 times 56 is not, oh, this should be 5 and 5, right? So then I run it again. Nope. I go to run test, run it, and everything's good. Okay. If we were in a hurry because we wanted to go out or whatever, and we have that correct, and maybe we made a silly mistake. Maybe you just said num1, right? You're like num1. And then you're like, okay, let me go to run test and let me run my code. And it's kind of like, what? 10 and 10, what? 10 not equal, what? So then you go first step again, look at your test data. And my test data is correct. 5 and 5 should be 25. 10 and 10 should be 100. So now you're like, oh, there's something wrong with my function code. So then you go in here and you would review, right, line by line. Okay, product, num times 1, num times num2. Okay, that's okay. Num1 times num2, that's okay. Oh, wait a minute, why did I do this, right? And then you're like, oh, I need to return product, right? And I also want to show you one thing. If you're using this, or notice how product is kind of like gray, meaning it's not in use, but if I use it, then it's kind of like it knows. Notice now it puts it white, so that can also help you. I kind of, oh, so now I'm using product. I go back to run test.py and I run my test and they should pass, right? So again, that's how you would like tackle your homework. Code, test. If it fails, check your test data. Test data is okay, then there's something wrong with the code you wrote, okay? Final step is use the program, the function in your main file. So we go here and it's saying we did write test. If you're lost or you can't follow along, remember this is recorded, so I'll post it. And it's due Saturday, right? So you can go back and go step by step. So we did this piece already. And now we're create and run the main program. Okay, so we're going to the main file and it's kind of like at the top of the file, write the input output output statement. Okay, so where do we go? We go to src homework be in proc out main. Okay, and we have to tell Python where to find our code. Import output. That's where Python can find the code. Okay, what are we wanting to do here? Create a result variable and assign it the return value of the output multiplying numbers function. Display the result to the screen. Okay, so we're like, okay, so result equals output dot multiply numbers, and we can do 5 and 5. Output the result, print result. I'm confident that this works, multiply numbers works, because I created test cases for it. Let me go down here, clear, go here, 25, okay? And we can also capture input, right? I'm like, okay, I want to multiply whole numbers. So I'll say value equals, maybe I'll say value 1, just to show you. Value 1 equals input, enter value 1. And then value 2 equals input, enter value 2. And then we can say result again, but we have to make minor change, right? We want to use the values that we got from the keyboard, but we have to remember that we have to convert them to integer for arithmetic operations. So we're like int value 1, int value 2. And notice now I am asking for 2 inputs, input 1, input 2. I'll input value 1 here, value 2 here. So I run it. It displayed 25. That was this piece here. And now it's asking me for an input. So I'll say 5. And then I'll say 4. And it outputs 20 for me. So my program is successfully working, and I used multiply numbers, which is tested code. So that's how we would complete assignment 1. Let me stop here and I'll